as more and more black folks, men and women, discover that they too have the right to keep and bear arms, and they too start to learn to appreciate the benefits of the Second Amendment, there is a growing message that started about 20 years ago that tries to tamp that down. And the messaging says that the Second Amendment is not for black folks because it was put there to support slavery. That is not true then. It is not true now. It is a lie foisted by some liberal professor 20 years ago and brought back out a couple of years ago in a New York Times op-ed. Second Amendment was not about slavery. There's not a single writing from any of the founders that suggests that, nor any documents that created from any of the states that created the Bill of Rights. It is just not true. The professor, a guy named Carl T. Bogus, Bogus, from Roger Williams University, speculates, underline the word speculate, that two of the founders, George Mason and Patrick Henry, their demands in the ratification from Virginia, the state of Virginia at the time, was motivated by slavery. That is just not true, never was. What Mason recalled was that when the resolution of enslaving America was formed in Great Britain in the Parliament, Parliament was advised to disarm the people. That's the best and most efficient way to enslave them. Now, as far as Patrick Henry is concerned, he said the great object that every man be armed. So they're talking about the need to arm against tyranny. The need to arm the people. It had nothing to do with slavery. Now, what did support the idea of not having the Second Amendment apply to black people was the denial of the right of all the people to bear arms. That's what supported slavery, and it was the Supreme Court's notorious Dred Scott decision that held that black folks could not be regarded as citizens and therefore would not have protections of the Bill of Rights or the Constitution. Frederick Douglass advocated Second Amendment rights for all, and so did Sojourner Truth. They both carried guns to help slaves escape on pain of their own death. So it wasn't the Second Amendment or the founders. It was the institution of slavery itself, as it found its way to the Supreme Court and the Dred Scott decision, that removed Bill of Rights protections from black people. Now, when slavery was abolished, the southern states wasn't going to give up without a fight, so they instituted Jim Crow laws and others that prohibited blacks from owning firearms. The U.S. Congress countered that with the Freedmen's Bureau Act of 1866, which then protected the constitutional right to bear arms for all people, including black folks, without the distinction of color. That was a major impetus for the adoption of the 14th Amendment, was to protect the right to keep and bear arms as well as other rights from state violation. Now, it should be noted that after the successful American Revolution, those ideas spread to Europe, and France was one of the first countries to try to implement that. And in a draft of the French Declaration of Rights in 1789, the statement in there says, every citizen has the right to keep arms at home and to use them either for the common defense or for his own defense. However, the elites of the time did not like the idea of the public, individual people being armed, And that was rejected. And what followed was the French Revolution, also known as the Terror, because it was terrible. Because no European country recognized the right of the individual to keep and bear arms, they would pay a devastating price for not recognizing that. Hitler would disarm his political opponents and Jews and others, and then he would occupy the country, use registration of firearms lists, which is why we should never have an arms registry. And he ferreted out gun owners, and many were executed just for the fact that they owned guns. Now, we don't talk about that part today because it's not seen as politically correct, but the facts are still the facts and the truth is the truth. So I'll say again, the creation of the Second Amendment had nothing to do with slavery. It never did. The historical injustice after the Constitution's ratification was done by slave-owning states, which ended up with the Civil War, and those weren't corrected until the 14th Amendment. Blacks were denied almost all rights of citizens, thanks to Dred Scott, including the right to protect themselves. The Second Amendment has nothing to do with slavery, never did. So thanks for watching. Carry on.